everyone, and welcome to Quilt Stories. Today I'm going to be chatting to Lisa Flowers Ross, who's in Boise, Idaho, and I've loved Lisa's work for ages, and it's always fascinated me how she gets such amazing joins in her work and everything runs so smoothly. And so I'm looking forward to finding out exactly how she does it, because it's very, very, very precise. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Hi, it's good to see you, and thank you for inviting me to visit with you.
No problem at all. And this is a really beautiful work called Flathead Lake. And it's actually the result of a residency that you did. So would you like to tell me a little bit about where we
Yes,
are?
yes, I was so fortunate to do this residency at Flathead Lake in Montana during the pandemic. I was really surprised that they decided to go ahead and do this. So this was last fall, end of September and October. I was there for 5 weeks.
Wow.
I had this little cabin here, which is 2 rooms, and they're both bedrooms. So one side, this side here was used as a studio, and the other side was where I slept. Yeah, as you can see, the space was small. And when I got there, the beds were in the middle of the room. So I pushed them to the side. I got creative and put one mattress on top of the other. And I have my portable design wall propped up on that bed. You can see some of my hand-dyed fabrics that I brought with me. I never know exactly what to bring, so I just kind of guess at some colors. And then I always bring some white fabric and some paint just to have in case I need to get a different color. And then I also brought the fold-up table that's kind of on the edge here. And then on the other bed, I took the mattress off. I could put my iron on it without it taking up floor space. And then underneath the iron, those rolls are pre-fused fabric. So I already have fusible webbing on them. I also brought extra webbing to use if necessary. Brought my sewing machine, and this was my little setup here in one room of my cabin.
Was there somewhere where you could go and eat and have a bathroom and things?
Well, so the other side is the bedroom, the other bedroom, and we had a little mini fridge and a microwave. The bathrooms and the kitchen were in another building. It was me and one other artist there at the same time. And we had to quarantine for 7 days at the beginning. So we weren't allowed to go to any of the public buildings. We had our own bathrooms, but we couldn't go use the kitchen. So we used our microwave and fridge, and it worked out fine. Yeah, so it was a pretty rustic, this cabin. It's at the Flathead Lake Biological Station is where we stayed. And it's they have these out on a little peninsula, and it's surrounded by woods. And we're actually at the biological station, so there's people working, and they had labs and those kind of areas. We couldn't go in for the first 7 days. They also have a little museum, and so we just had to quarantine, and it was fine.
Okay,
So
it sort of terrifies me, the thought of having to take everything. Did you say 5 weeks? Did you say?
yeah, yes, I was there for 5 weeks. So yeah, it's hard to figure out. I've done a few of these residencies in remote locations before, and it's always hard to decide what to bring because I
Yeah.
don't actually go with a set plan. I like to be inspired by the location and the nature surrounding it. So I wait till I get there to see what inspires me and what I'm going to work on. So it's worked out fine so far. I just make do with what I bring. And sometimes that forces me to be more creative. And I have come up with new things each time. So it all works out.
Wow, I'm very impressed. I've never done one, so I think I'd be terrified,
Oh,
and I
well,
definitely.
there's all different, kinds. I have chosen the ones that are in, beautiful remote locations because I do want to be inspired by nature. So yeah, here's a view of the lake, Flathead Lake. It is located in the northwest corner of Montana, and it's about an hour south of Glacier National Park. So it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Flathead Lake is one of the most pristine freshwater lakes in the US. And one of the first questions we asked of the scientists there is why? Why is this one so, as you can see, this picture is, water's clear, you can see the rocks, and then as it gets deeper, it changes color. And so the answer to that question, there were a lot of elements that contribute to the nature of the lake. That inspired the piece that I made. This started out a little differently than most of my pieces. This one has a little more conceptual idea going into it. I didn't actually make this piece while I was there, but I gathered the information while I was there. First, let me give you a little background about their answers.
Oh, yeah.
Where, yeah, they gave some answers. A lot of what affects is the geology, the area surrounding the lake, the other waters that flow into the lake, and different things. So as they were talking about all these different elements that contribute to the nature of the lake, in my mind, I saw that they all had these similar linear elements. And so that's what you see here. These are my drawings of each element, kind of, and they're divided. You can only see 4 sections here, but there's 5. And so I drew all those lines, and when I do, mostly now, I will print out my drawing large, and I use a local document company that can do blueprints and large printing. So this is the initial pattern. One of the elements that contributes to the pristine nature is this is a bathymetric map of the lake, so it shows the depths of the lake. And so the depth of the lake contributes to the nature of the lake, basically. So they gave me this map, and for one of my sections, I zoomed in on a really small area near the biological station. If you can look on the right-hand side of the lake, kind of toward the middle, you might see the yellow bay. That's where the biological station is. That's where I was located. Yep. And so I took a small section of kind of that darker area, some of those lines near there. So obviously I zoomed in a lot, and I didn't use, the whole thing. So that was one section of the lake. And then also on this map, you can tell that the surrounding area is a lot of natural areas. So there's a lot of parks and wilderness area, and there's a lot of trees. And so that's another factor that helps keep the lake clean, is that the trees act as a filter for air and water pollutants before they get to the lake. So that's another element in my piece where I used tree rings, because the trees contribute to keeping the water clean.
And did you do your drawings while you were there? Because you said you actually made the quilt when you were home.
Yeah, I wanted to make it when I came home because I wanted to make it big, large, and it's easier to do that in a little bit bigger space. Like I said, they gave me this map, and then I gathered some more stuff. I think I actually came home and did the drawings at home, but I gathered enough information so I could do that. So I had this, and I also had, this is actually I have a paper version of this, but I also have the electronic version of this. Here, I was talking about the trees. So this is a tree slab, a slice of tree that was cut down. It was at the biological station. It's in a little museum they have there. You can see the center tack there, the red one. The date is 1665.
Wow.
And then I think the last label I can read, it says 1987. So I took pictures of this tree slab, and I used some of the ring. I zoomed in again, and I actually used the rings in this piece of wood to draw the lines for my piece. Here I found, this is a topo map of an area near the lake. Now that white part is not the actual lake, it's a reservoir to the east, but I liked this area of the topography. So that little rectangle kind of on the right to the middle is the actual section I zoomed in on and I took the lines from. And so the topography of the area around the lake also affects the nature of the lake. So that's another section in my work. And then this is a screenshot of Procreate, a program on my iPad. And so what you're looking at is I have a picture of rocks, layers of rocks from Glacier National Park, because the geology of the area also contributes to the nature of the lake, and the geology is really old. And so there's not a lot of phosphorus in the rocks around the area. So the lake doesn't get a lot of phosphorus. And because of that, there's not a lot of aquatic life or plants in the lake. So the geology affects the pristine nature. So one day I drove up to Glacier and I took some pictures of the rocks. And then what you're looking at is the program where I can create a layer on top and just trace those lines, basically. So that's how I got the lines for another section to represent the geological element.
Yes, I was going to ask about the life around there, because the water was really clear and I wondered whether there were fish and things.
Yeah, there's some fish. It's just there's not a lot of plant life, aquatic plants that, can grow a lot, or there is some life in there, but it's just not as abundant. There's not a lot of algae, which also can make the water cloudy and stuff. Yeah. And we went out one day, we went out on the boat with them to get water samples, and they test the water, periodically. They do research there. They're on top of it and they're monitoring things. The human activity has been unfortunately contributing to runoff into the water. They monitor it. They also help scientists all over the world in other freshwater lake areas, trying to give them information to help figure out how to help their waters. So it's a really great place to learn about lakes and stuff. And yeah, we got to see phytoplankton under microscopes, and it was just, I learned a lot. So here you can see I cut up the sections. There's 5 different sections. So the 5 sections were the tree rings, the rock layers, the topography, the bathymetric lines, and then the last section is like an aerial view of the Flathead River, which runs into the lake. And the river helps keep things from running into the lake because it's so curvy. So it has a lot of curves, and it filters out things, before they run into the lake. So that's another factor that helps keep the lake nice. So those are my 5 sections cut up, and I worked on them individually, which is, I don't usually cut my pieces up into sections, so this is a little different for me. This is my design wall, and I just started doing the tree ring fabrics on the left there. And obviously I'm not very good at getting them straight, but it's just to visualize.
Yep.
So yeah, I started cutting up the fabric there. When I cut these pattern pieces out, I have to add the 1/4 inch seam allowance around it. So I use that little measuring thing, and I mark, you might see a little dotted line around there. And I go around and I mark an extra 1/4 inch. All the pieces get an extra 1/4 inch all the way around. So it's a little bit time consuming.
And you do all those little lines to match up.
Yes, the little lines on the edges are my registration marks, so that I can line them up exactly, especially with these weird pieces and the curves. You want them to line up so it works out right. And
when you stitch them, do you just do a little bit at a time? Like just pin from one pin to the next, or
yeah, I try to pin where the registration marks are, and then I also try to figure out the best order in which to piece them together, because sometimes the order makes it easier to do. If you do it in the right order, it makes it easier. Sometimes there's just no order. They're all not easy. Here I started working on the outside sections first, because I wanted to see the colors and then try to bring some of those colors into the middle section. So the left section is the tree rings. The second one is the rocks. The green is the topography map, and the blue is the bathymetric map lines. And on those two, you think, oh, the darker is the deeper, but I didn't actually correlate my colors with the actual depths or the heights I just wanted to do it the way I wanted to. So the lines are accurate, but the colors do not correlate with, the depth or the height of the loom.
And these are all your own hand dyes?
Yes, I hand dye all my own fabric. I use a low immersion technique. So because we live in a high desert, so not using much water.
They're fairly solid colors though. Do you do a lot of mixing?
Yeah, I do a lot of hand manipulation to get a pretty solid color. It's a lot of work, but I want to conserve the water. So yeah, so here I have the middle section in, and I'm looking at all the colors together. And I will go back, if there's something I don't like, I will go back and cut another piece. So around the edges, you can see strips where I've, replaced something, or I was testing on another color. So in the end, I do kind of step back and look at it all together. And then if I have to cut another piece, I will.
Okay.
So
how big are these pieces?
How big are the pieces?
The individual panels.
The finished piece is, I can tell you, 61 inches by 30.5 inches. So it looks really big here, but when we get to the one, I think the next one shows it sewn together. Yeah, it shrinks up. It's always amazing how much it shrinks up to me. So here they're all sewn together. You can see the sections, and so here you can see I sandwiched the batting and the backing, and I'm starting to do the stitching, which includes couching yarn along the seam lines. So you can see those dark lines.
Yep.
So this is something I've never done. It's something new I did, but I really wanted to emphasize all those lines, because that was the first thing in my mind that connected all these elements together. So here I'm starting to couch on some dark blue yarn, which is also the quilting as I go. Yeah, here I've got all the curvy lines couched on, and I'm trying to decide if I want to add that yarn down the straight seam lines. And so I just auditioned it by sticking them up there. They're not attached. And in the end, I decided I did not like that. I thought it cut off the flow between the sections, and it was just too visually arresting and stopping the eye. So I did not add those.
And here, theoretically, is the finished work.
Yeah, here's the finished quilt. I do facing on the edges to finish it. And I obviously designed the quilt this way, and I worked on it this way. But at the very end, as I sometimes do with my pieces, I will turn them in different directions. And so on this one, I turned it vertically, and I decided that I liked it better that way. So this is the finished position, but because it is large, it's 61 inches tall now. I put a sleeve on the top, and I put a sleeve so it could also be hung horizontally in case, there was a venue that couldn't accommodate a size, that tall.
And this is planned to go into an exhibition?
Yes, this is going to go to an exhibition in a gallery in Missoula, Montana, and it will be open in May. And it will, the exhibition is pieces from all the artist residents. They had different areas you could go to. So the Western Montana Creative Initiatives is the program that hosts the residencies, and they have them in different locations in Montana. So I happened to be at the biological station, but they had other.
It's a beautiful quilt, whichever way you hang it, actually.
Yeah, I put it on Instagram both ways, and I asked for feedback on which people liked. And I would say the majority of people preferred the vertical, but there were people that also liked the horizontal. So yeah, it's just either way. It's nice when you have a piece that can go either way.
Definitely.
These pieces behind me that look like rocks, those were inspired by my residency there at the lake, because on one side of the peninsula, there were these beautiful, beautiful rocks in the water. And the very first day I was just taking like a million pictures of rocks. They were so beautiful, and it inspired me. So these are fused. So I used the fused fabrics I brought with me. And these are actually mounted on boards. I have done quite a few of the rocks, and I will continue to do them. They were just really nice.
Right. So they're not quilted, they're just fused and then
They're
mounted on the board.
fused. I did do some stitching on them before I put them on the boards. But yeah, they're very flat and graphic. So I like that. My newest work is over here behind me that I'm working on. I'm getting ready to stitch that one. So here we're going into spring, I think. So the greens have been really on my mind.
This one is stitched together, not fused.
Actually, it's a different, it's what I call a hybrid. I have pieced it together with the machine, but then those curvy edges I hand appliqued down.
Good on
you.
So
yeah, and then so now it's ready to get its stitching. It's sandwiched and it's just waiting. I haven't gotten around to that yet. So
unfortunately, you're not teaching online yet.
No, and we'll see how. Yes, before the pandemic, I had planned to do some workshops in my home because I have done that in the past, but then I didn't want to do them in person, and then I was like, oh, I could do it online, and then I just did not have the I didn't have the energy to do that. So
no, it does take a lot of work to not only the technology side of it, but you really do have to think of your workshops in a different way. It's definitely a different learning style. So yeah, I can understand your hesitation.
Yeah.
It's great to see how you can be influenced by your environment and how you make use of the time when you're in a strange environment. I think I do admire the challenge of going and spending that time and
it's dedicated time too, because that's what you're there to do. So it's a really good experience. I would encourage people, if they're interested in it, to give it a go. Because
how do people find out about Residency?
There is a list. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe the Artist Association. Just search residencies. Artist residency. You could, if you wanted to narrow it down to an area, you could do that and see. This residency that I did in Montana was fairly new, so I think they've only been doing it a couple years, and this year they're only having Montana residents. So again, I felt so fortunate to be able to go last year and participate in that.
Okay, well, there's something that people can consider. I know there's quite a few artist residencies in Australia.
Oh, maybe I'll do one there.
Indeed.
That would be lovely.
When we can travel again.
Yes.
It's been lovely chatting to you. And I'm sure everyone's enjoyed seeing how you get inspired by your environment and then convert it into a beautiful quilt, whichever way you want to hang it. I really like both. And if you've enjoyed this video, and I would really encourage you to subscribe. There's a button. Click on that and click on the bell, because if you click on the bell, then you get notified when the new videos come out. And there's about 50 of them now, so there's plenty for you to watch and plenty more to come. And Lisa has a beautiful website, lots of eye candy, and all the details of her social media and her website are down in the description box below. So please go and check it out. Thank you, Lisa. It's been lovely chatting with you. And I look forward to seeing your next works. So thanks everybody. Bye for now.